Hi, second graders. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 1 of Charlotte's Web, and today we're going to read Chapter 2. So go ahead and get your snack if you have one, get cozied up on the couch or chair, get comfortable at your table, and let's get started. Chapter 2, Wilbur. Fern loved Wilbur more than anything. She loved to stroke him, to feed him, to put him to bed. Every morning, as soon as she got up, she warmed his milk, tied his bib on, and held the bottle for him. Every afternoon, when the school bus stopped in front of her house, she jumped out and ran to the kitchen to fix another bottle for him. She fed him again at supper time and again just before going to bed. Mrs. Arable gave him a feeding around noontime each day when Fern was away in school. Wilbur loved his milk, and he was never happier than when Fern was warming up a bottle for him. He would stand and gaze up at her with adoring eyes. For the first few days of his life, Wilbur was allowed to live in a box near the stove in the kitchen. Then, when Mrs. Arable complained, he was moved to a bigger box in the woodshed. At 2 weeks of age, he was moved outdoors. It was apple blossom time, and the days were getting warmer. Just like today, boys and girls, you're going to notice that today is a nice warm day, so I hope you get out and play. Mr. Arable fixed a small yard especially for Wilbur under an apple tree, and gave him a large wooden box full of straw with a doorway cut in it so he could walk in and out as he pleased. "Won't he be cold at night?" asked Fern. "No," said her father. "You watch and see what he does." Carrying a bottle of milk, Fern sat down under the apple tree in the yard. Wilbur ran to her, and she held the bottle for him while he sucked. When he had finished the last drop, he grunted and walked sleepily into the box. Fern peered through the door. Now let's take a minute, and let's look at the word peered right here. What do you think peered means? If you said looked, you are right. Way to use those context clues. Wilbur was poking at the straw with his snout. So his snout's his nose. In a short time, he had dug a tunnel in the straw. He crawled into the tunnel and disappeared from sight, completely covered with straw. Fern was enchanted. It relieved her mind to know that her baby would sleep covered up and would stay warm. And I would say she definitely treated Wilbur like a baby. Can you think of some of the ways that she treated him like a baby? Every morning after breakfast, Wilbur walked out to the road with Fern and waited with her until the bus came. She would wave goodbye to him, and he would stand and watch the bus until it vanished around the turn. Here's another vocabulary word here, vanished. What do you think vanished means? Disappeared is right. While Fern was in school, Wilbur was shut up inside his yard. But as soon as she got home in the afternoon, she would take him out and he would follow her around the place. If she went into the house, Wilbur went too. If she went upstairs, Wilbur would wait at the bottom step until she came down again. If she took her doll for a walk in the doll carriage, Wilbur followed along. Sometimes on these journeys, Wilbur would get tired and Fern would pick him up and put him in the carriage alongside the doll. He liked this, and if he was very tired, he would close his eyes and go to sleep under the doll's blanket. He looked cute when his eyes were closed because his lashes were so long. The doll would close her eyes too, and Fern would wheel the carriage very slowly and smoothly, as so not to wake up her infants or her babies. Now, I want to tell you, I can make a text-to-self connection right here, boys and girls. When I was about Fern's age, I had a doll carriage too, and a little baby doll, and I had a gray cat named Evie. And guess what I would do? You guessed it, I would put Evie in the baby doll carriage and I would walk her up and down the street. I know, it's kind of funny. One warm afternoon, Fern and Avery put on bathing suits and went down to the brook for a swim. Wilbur tagged along at Fern's heels. When she waded into the brook, Wilbur waded in after her. He found the water quite cold. Too cold for his liking, so while the children swam and played and splashed water at each other, Wilbur amused himself in the mud along the edge of the brook where it was warm and moist and delightfully sticky and oozy. Sounds perfect for a little pig. Every day was a happy day, and every night was peaceful. Wilbur was what the farmers call a spring pig, which simply means that he was born in the springtime. Now, we can make a text-to-text connection here, boys and girls. Do you know what book I'm thinking of? You're right. If you said Little House in the Big Woods, you are right. Do you remember the part about the pig? I'm sure you do. When he was 5 weeks old, Mr. Arable said he was now big enough to sell and would have to be sold. Fern broke down and wept. Let's look at this word wept here. What do you think wept means? If you said crying, yes, you are right. But her father was firm about it. Wilbur's appetite had increased, and he was beginning to eat scraps of food in addition to milk. Mr. Arable was not willing to provide for him any longer. He had already sold Wilbur's 10 brothers and sisters, and I have a feeling that Fern is not going to be able to convince her father this time like she did in chapter 1. He's got to go, Fern. He said, "You have had your fun raising a baby pig, but Wilbur is not a baby any longer, and he has got to be sold." "Call up the Zuckermans," suggested Mrs. Arable. To Fern, "Your Uncle Homer sometimes raises a pig, and if Wilbur goes there to live, you can walk down the road and visit him as often as you would like." "How much money should I ask for him?" Fern wanted to know. "Well," said her father, "he's a runt. Tell your Uncle Homer you've got a pig you'll sell for $6 and see what he says." It was soon arranged. Fern phoned and got her Aunt Edith, and her Aunt Edith hollered for Uncle Homer, and Uncle Homer came in from the barn to talk to Fern. When he heard that the price was only $6, he said he would buy the pig. Next day, Wilbur was taken from his home under the apple tree and went to live in a manure pile in the cellar of Zuckerman's barn. And this word manure just means animal waste. That's all it means. Okay, boys and girls, so that is the end of chapter 2, and I have some questions for you. The first one is, Fern quickly fell in love with her pig. Name one activity that Fern and her pig did together. And I'll give you a little hint. I did this with my cat when I was her age. You are right. One thing Fern did with Wilbur was take him on walks. Then, if he became tired, she would put him in her carriage alongside her doll and push him the rest of the way. Okay, question number 2. What happened when Wilbur was 5 weeks old? And this is a multiple choice. A, he was moved outside. B, he was big enough to sell. C, he became very ill. Or D, he was sent to live with the other pigs. If you picked B, he was old enough to sell. Correct. Question number 3. Who were the Zuckermans and why did Fern need to call them? Well, the Zuckermans were Fern's aunt and uncle, and they owned a big farm down the road. And Fern called them because she wanted to talk them into buying Wilbur. So if that happened, he would be close by and Fern could visit him as often as she would like. Okay, boys and girls, so that concludes chapter 2, and I will read chapter 3 tomorrow. Have an amazing day. I'm so proud of you, second graders. Bye.